Why, hello, this is Robbie from Southern California. And today is 4th of July, and this is not a garden tour. This is going to be a nature walk, and I'm literally going to walk through all the gardens and just talk about maybe even issues on plants and pests. But it's not a garden tour. You want to see a garden tour? Go watch the July 1st where my table was so full of vegetables that I picked that I'm still cooking them, but you know what? We're going to use them all, and it's made some wonderful chili out of them. But anyways, I am going to walk through and talk about maybe you're having some issues with different things too. Haven't done anything here. We've been having a big issue with ground squirrels this year. Look what they have done to my wonderful squash that grows on the cord. And look at that. Now, I haven't done anything with it because I keep planning on taking this plant out, but the ground squirrels have been making holes. Now, I can pick that right now and still use it. That is not an issue. I'll just cut all that off, and if it was a bigger issue, I could cook it up and give it to the dogs, but that's not an issue. I'm kind of leaving that because maybe if they come out at night or during the day, who's ever doing it, maybe they'll leave alone those squash that are growing good and say, hey, there it is. Let's just kind of, like I said, walk through on everything. Let's talk about pests. Yes, you're going to go, wait a minute, you tool. Don't you put tool out? Of course I use tool. There's tool there. There's tool. This is all tool. I do put tool out. But you can't tool everything. You tool everything, they'll get desperate enough to figure out, well, there's no food anywhere if they can't find it somewhere else. And they're going to say, well, what is this? Is it really going to kill me? Is it really going to hurt me? Maybe I can do something with it. You don't want them to go that far. You're smarter than them. Remember that. So you don't want to think about, you don't want them to think about it. Think about it this way. You go to the shopping center, you go to the mall, and you're going to go to your favorite store to get some candy you like. Oh, I'm just using that as an example. There's part of nature. We have lizards everywhere, and they keep down a lot of insects. You get there and the store's closed. Your favorite store is closed. They've got your candy that you wanted. You wanted to go back and sit down and watch YouTube. Oh my gosh, my life is over. No, it's not. You look at it and you think, well, should I break the door? Should I just smash the door in and go get my candy? Maybe nobody will notice. No, you're not going to do that. Let's keep walking. Walk in the front yard. See, there's tool, and it works. So what do? 3 doors down from your favorite store that carries your favorite candy that you want to go watch YouTube with, sit back, kick back on 4th of July, and you don't have that candy to sit there with your box of candy eating it. But 2 doors down, they've got it. And yes, guess what? Costs the same. But for some reason, you're a creature of habit. You wanted to go to that store that's closed today, but that store is open, same price, and you don't even have to walk that far. Well, what are you going to do? Realistically, you're going to risk your life by breaking down a door or a window to get in there and get your candy? Of course not. You're going to go next door. It doesn't cost anything different either. That's what I'm saying. If I tooled everything in my front yard to keep nature out, they're going to figure it out if they can't go to one of my other neighbors. And they know that the Horn of Plenty is here. Believe you me, they know. But they only want to do things that is easy for them. Like I always do, gardening easy. Well, that's the same thing for them. They want it easy. They want to come. They want to grab what they want. And then they want to leave. They don't want to hang out. You got hawks. We've got hawks everywhere. All kinds of hawks and predators. They want to come get their stuff and take off. So that's why I don't cover everything. Basically, I let some plants get sacrificed. Of course, I'm going to cover my young plants because I don't want them chewing on that. They chew on that and that'll be the end of the plant. But they'll go somewhere else. And it works. It works. Let's keep walking. So what do we have here? In here, there's a lot of birds that hang out in these trees. We have kingbirds that hang out, and we've got, I saw bush tits in here yesterday, and the goldfinches and hummingbirds everywhere. I don't know what they're getting out of the pine trees. There must be a pollen, but they were just zipping around. There could be insects. We've got all kinds of birds here. I'm not going to go through and list all the birds as far as dropping in a lot of photos on this, because I want to do more of a hello, it's 4th of July, and just kind of a walkthrough. But I will put a link underneath to a video I did where speaking of hummingbirds, where I actually, you know what, we're going to have to stop. Let's just do this because she knows me. They love flowers. They've got all the feeders full. Oh, she's gone. I was sitting here yesterday and she came right next to me, and they know they got flowers and insects and different things around. So I'm not going to go over all the birds because, like I said, I have a video. I got sidetracked by the hummingbird. I'm always sidetracked by hummingbirds. I've got a video where I went over every species that I documented on our property. All the videos were done here in our gardens, all over. Nothing bothers this. Once in a while, I'll have something come nip the top of something, probably a rat or something, but there's really no food in here for them. And so you go, if you want to see the different birds, if I mention it, it's all going to be in there. Let's go through the gate. Look at compost. I'm composting. That was kitchen scraps with some leaves on top. You can see all the birds we have, and different birds are here at different times. Right now, we do not have white-crowned sparrows. They disappear and they obviously have a better place somewhere else. We are loaded with goldfinches. I've told a story on that. 20-something years ago, Gary said, "Oh my gosh, there's a goldfinch out the window." He was so excited. We had almost no goldfinches. Now we have as many goldfinches as we have hummingbirds. The difference with the goldfinches is they stay basically in the gardens. They nibble on greens as well as they eat the seeds off of the new seeds off of a lot of the plants. So that's what we have a lot of now, and that's another bird that's really thrived in our gardens, along with so many others. You know, some of the songbirds aren't here right now. The warblers, there's a couple warblers that aren't here. They're going to be back probably end of summer. A lot of those come back. We have a lot of birds that winter here all year round, including hundreds and thousands, which you know, of hummingbirds. Right now, a lot of them have gone up north, but you know, they're all going to be moving in and out, all the different species. We've got over 50, and since I made that video, we have more that come and live here. It is absolutely amazing. It's warm right now. It's close to being afternoon, so in the afternoon it's quiet. There's not as many birds around, so when we walk through, it will be quiet right now. But I have solar fountains everywhere. And let me tell you something, fountains bring in wildlife, especially the birds. They really need water. They need water, they need food, and some sort of shelter. There is water, there's food, and there's shelter, the trees. They've got it made. That's what they need. And if you produce that for them, or you can provide that for them, you're going to end up with a lot of birds. Now, I do let the birds in here eat pretty much what they want. I'm trying to only tool a few things. I want to get some of my dinosaur kale down there back, so I threw some tool over it. I did protect the lettuce because I didn't want them to get to the lettuce. But that's basically it. I mean, not everything. As you could see, you know, it's hot, so the plants are skimpy because they had just gone the seed, but they're going to keep going, and come fall, in a couple months, they're going to just take off. The leaves will get massive. This will turn so green, and hopefully I'll be able to get some more of these containers planted. A lot of this is in the ground, and so the birds can just hang out like they're trees and do what they want. So anyway, so there's not much else going in here, and that's why I said, check out that video. I know a lot of you have requested, why don't you just narrate the whole thing? Let's go through the gates and keep walking. I could narrate it. It's over an hour long. What I wanted to do was let you guys have a rest and not hear me and just listen to the birds. But I could do the same video or add in some of the new stuff and narrate it as well. So maybe I will do that. In this particular garden, as you see, we have cabbage butterflies. And then I do get the bush tits. The bush tits are very tiny. They nest here also, and they eat a lot of the small insects. They're very big on eating small insects. And then you've got the goldfinches that come in and will nibble on greens. and they will eat the lettuce, but they're eating the lettuce seeds. The lettuce seed is important to them. We're in a severe drought to the point where it's actually starting to get a little scary. And I'm going to really have to think about it. They'll come in here and eat the seeds, the goldfinches. They were here all morning as I was getting ready to maybe do a walkthrough like I did. I'm really going to think about and make sure that most of my garden this year, as we go into the next season, and we garden all year, we're going to make sure those holes are up, because I don't have to water my garden even on the hottest days. 100 degrees, I only water maybe once every other day, because there's always a reservoir of water underneath being wicked up and pulled by the plants. And this has really helped, and that's what's scary. And then, of course, you can do it in a vertical garden as well. I've got the holes up. Some are down and some are up. So you can do it all different ways. Isn't this amazing? I haven't seen too many birds come up here, but it could be because I'm sitting here. I'm sure they will, but see, they feel safer to be here because they're out in the elements where they can take off and go back into the trees. And here they have a wall. Think about that when you're setting up. That wall, though the hummingbirds don't mind the wall, some of your other birds would be a little leery because they can't go either way. They can only go one way. So I'm not sure if any birds are coming to eat insects, but I do know that the rabbit has come and he does nibble on the lettuce that's in there. This has been great. So anyways, we do have a lot of different birds. And then we have the house finches come in here, and we'll have the white crowns later. I also feed the birds. Let's keep walking. So what else do we have here? We have a lot of coyotes. So there's nothing I can do about that. You know, they do come here because, well, they live everywhere. They live in the city. They run through the schools. It's just amazing how many coyotes there are. We do have skunks, and I do like our skunks. Skunks to me are important because they eat snails and slugs and a lot of stuff you don't want. They really don't bother too much. Now there I had the ground squirrels. I think you saw in some of my past videos the tree squirrels were going all through here. But now we've got an issue with ground squirrels. All the babies are out. Well, they're going to be out, but they're going to be disappearing, a lot of them. They went into some of my squash. You can see the one that's got almost nothing in there, and they ate the center out. So no biggie. We're just in the beginning of July. I've already started some seeds. I'm going to get some more squash planted in there, and I'll decide if I'm going to pull the other one out and put in a new and just compost it, or plant it next to it and let it keep going. All in all, we're still getting plenty of food out of there, but I want to make sure I have good squash plants that are going to last through the fall into the winter, because the wall stays warm, and I'm hoping to get the occasional zucchini. And that's got the gray zucchini and the black beauty. I want to get the occasional zucchini during the winter, because as long as nothing takes the plant out, a lot of times they'll still produce. Now let's talk here. I really need to do the video on these from last year. There is a nest up there. Let's zoom in real quick, and then I'll explain the nest. That nest is now empty. Nobody's in that nest. Okay, let's zoom out. That is a Cooper hawk's nest. Last year was the first year they came in, they built that nest, and they raised 5 babies. And they kept them here on the property, 5. I actually have a video where the mom or dad brought in a rabbit and passed it, once they were full grown in the bushes, the rabbit from one to another. That's why I haven't put it up. It's kind of sad, but it is nature. There's, what else can you do? Let's keep walking. This year they came back in. He came first, and he called and called, and I thought, oh no, I hope nothing happened to her. But nothing did happen to her, and she showed up, and they fixed up, refurbished, what would you call it? Fixer-upper? They did a fixer-upper on their nest, and then they went back to nest, and this year they raised 3 babies. If we're quiet enough, we might be able to hear them. They are still here. They're now flying around. It was so funny. A neighbor came over one day recently and said to me, "What is up there? I see all this." He could see it in the trees. And I explained to him what it was. He goes, "How can you tell? The birds are all so big. Which are the babies?" "Oh, you know the babies." He goes, "How?" "The way they fly." And he goes, "The way they fly?" I said, "Yeah, the way they fly." I said, the parents fly beautifully, and look at this. Can you see that? It's a goldfinch. See what he's doing? He's eating the lettuce seeds, and I can't stop him. You know, we have weed abatement here, but there hasn't been that many weeds and they have no food. So I let them do what they want. And they'll never get all the lettuce. So as I was telling him, you can see the parents are so graceful. There's one thing I've never been able to capture yet, and Gary has seen it twice, where they come fly when the babies are still in the nest into the sky. He said it's the most beautiful thing he's ever seen. And one flies up and calls, and the other one calls, and they do an exchange. And the male drops whatever they caught, a ground squirrel or something, and the female flies underneath, grabs it, and then brings it back to the nest. Twice he saw it. I have never been able to capture that. You have to have camera on, right spot, and ready to do that. So I told him, you know, because when they fly, they slam into things, where the parents are very graceful. You wouldn't even know sometimes that they flew and landed right next to me to watch me in the garden. And as we were talking, one came by, slammed into the tree, and then landed and looked at us. And I said, that's how you know it's a baby. And he couldn't stop laughing. It was so funny. Here we've got the dragonflies that have been flying around, but Gary's the one that's really got a lot of dragonflies. We did have some hatch out of here, and then they left their... Oh, speaking of dragonflies, look at that. He came to visit. Isn't that cool? So we have a lot of dragonflies. Gary has brought in a lot of dragonflies with his ponds. But we did have them crawl out, and they attach their little bodies to the wall. They look like, I don't know, they kind of look like, I'll say a roach, but not really. And they attach themselves to the wall, they split open, and they crawl out. So we had a few of them hatch out of here. Mainly they come out of Gary's. You know, it's so funny, but when they come out, they're leery of you. And then all of a sudden, they become tame to the point where Gary has actually pet them. Isn't that something? He's flying and checking me out. I'm hoping you can see him. He's flying back and forth. He's just circling me. There he is. Let's see if we can zoom in real quick. Now, isn't that gorgeous? I don't want to yell into the camera or you'll fall off the couch if you're sitting there. Isn't that? And you can't even see his true color because the sun is so blazing bright. But I'm not going to walk up to him. But you can pet them a lot of times. It's amazing. They let you pet them. I've just walked up and stroked them, and Gary does it all the time. Well, not all the time, but sometimes. All right, so let's continue to walk down because this is just a nature walk today. I don't want to get into vegetables and what to plant, even though I'll be planting more lettuce. And I don't need to plant kale. You can plant now. I don't need to plant that because I let my plants grow for about 4 or 5 years. I'm going to plant more squash. You know, we're in zone 10A, so we can pretty much grow all year. But when you're in zone anywhere from 5 to 8, then you've got to be really particular. They say you can't grow tomatoes, but you might be able to get some of the really tiny, compact cherry tomatoes growing. Basically, what you would be getting is like what I'm going to be planting is more cucumbers. So I want to get more cucumbers out, zucchini out, lettuce. You could do cilantro if you keep planting it, if it bolts in your area. Just keep planting it. Beets, you can plant beets and just keep planting it. There's a lot of stuff. If you had a microclimate, you could do all kinds of stuff. Even stuff they tell you can't do, you can do. We've had in here hummingbird nests. They've been nesting by Gary's beehives. There's his beehive. I guess the bees are there. Let's take a quick peek. There's not as many bees, but they also cover the entrance. I wonder if they've split off. Let's take a look for a minute. I don't know. Doesn't seem to be as many bees. Usually they're on the outside unless they're all out working. I'm not sure. Let's keep walking. Here we have a lot of birds actually. This is like, well, they're olive trees, some of them. And this is a ficus tree, and it brings in a lot of birds that eat the berries. Tons of birds. Again, I've got that all listed on my video I did. It's like an hour, 2 hours long, the video on birds. Anyways, going back to the birds, they sit up here and they eat, and they come in for the berries and the olives as well. But this isn't olives that we could actually do anything with. It's kind of a, I'm going to call it a wild variety. Gary knows more of the varieties than me. But this is like the perfect place. It's nice and cool. And then here we've had rabbits. The rabbits have had babies in here. So there's a lot he's trying to get going. He wants to get some trees going, so he covers them up so the rabbits won't eat them. So he's doing that. Let's keep walking. Trying to see what I hear. I don't know. It could be wind. Let's keep walking. Years ago, when we used to get a lot of rain, and we don't anymore, 20-something years ago, we got a lot of rain. This is almost a creek. It's a runoff. And that's why there's so many plants in here. It was always damp down there. Even in the summer, you could look down here, and it was damp. We don't have that anymore. We haven't had much rain at all this year. And over the years, it's been getting drier and drier. They're going, it's wet right now. Well, it is wet. But that's because there's sprinklers on down there right now to water the trees. But it used to be naturally wet. That's why you can see how it's cut out. So it would come from the hills and it would just run down, especially when there was rain, it would run through the hills and then there would be kind of a natural runoff. And as you could see where it would run, and this would be kind of a, well, you could almost say man-made. I mean, they built the houses and moved things around, but see how thick and planted up it is in there? And there's even poison oak in there. That's because of the water runoff, but over the years, we haven't had that for quite a few years now. And Gary's got his jujube, I think it's called, his tree. He had to cover that from the deer, so he's done that. And then we're now in Gary's garden. Avocado tree. Not really throwing much avocados because it's coming from the rootstock. He was going to take it out once, but he decided to leave it, which I'm glad he did. Look how beautiful it is. And he could, if he really wanted to, graft it. We've got some really good avocado trees, so he could, if he ever gets into real grafting, graft some of them and see what we can get off of that, since it's, well, the rootstock is doing fantastic. All right, then he's got all these trees he put here. These are Brazilian pepper trees. He put this here where the birds hide in. Oh, we've seen all kinds of birds hide in here. Robins come in here and hide in here during early spring. Everything hides in here. This is because the canyon that you can see from my garden is down there. Well, he's trying to block the wind. Otherwise, he'd have wind constantly blowing. See, when I'm up on top, see what I've done? A big loop. Look at all the berries. Again, it's not a garden tour. See, when I'm in my garden, which is up on top there, we look down and we can see the canyon. But he wanted to block it, which makes sense, because this way, it's a windbreak is what it is. And it's worked. But if he would have known better, he said he would not have put these. These were baby trees he put here about 10 years ago. He didn't realize the roots on them. And the roots are horrible. They come in and rob all your plants. So he's been trying to do different things. And that was another reason he went into container gardening. It does do a toll on the plants. And here he's had some squirrel issues. That's why I said they've been chewing the center out of plants. This is something they've never done before. I mean, for years, they would eat certain plants, but they wouldn't bother the squash. So what he's done now is he's starting to cover them. He should just build a tool cage. I'm building tool cages out of the tote lids. And let me tell you something, it's worked miracles. And I'm going to do a whole bunch more today after this because I need to do it. The apples, his issue was the deer were coming in here. Oh, look, the dragonflies are coming and greeting me. So he's covered them from the deer. Let's go into Gary's garden. And then we've kind of made a circle. Oh my goodness, he's come right up to the camera. That's really odd. Look at that. Oh my gosh. Talk about being tamed. That's what he said. When they first come out and emerge, they don't want to be near you. And then all of a sudden, oh, his yard is full. I'm standing here. The camera can't pick them up. There must be 30 or 40 of them. They're all, look at this, they're all over the place. He said as they hang around you, they figure out, wow, this is, they're fine, we don't care. And then they come up to you to see what you're doing, like they're curious. Look at this, can you see him? Gosh, I hope you can. He's making compost tea, I can see that. Same thing I've been doing, and I need to do more as the plants are growing for their production. So I've got to do more compost tea. So he's got compost tea going. And he's got all kinds of birds in here too. He's had wrens nesting like I've had in mine. He has goldfinches down here, hummingbirds all over the place. Just all kinds of stuff. Now his big thing is he had a frog. And I think his frog has either moved on or probably found its mate, so he doesn't croak anymore at night. You heard him really loud. It's so hard to believe. They're so tiny and they're so loud. So he's got a lot. I mean, he has a food forest. I don't really have a food forest. I have a low maintenance, I guess you can say container gardening, raised bed gardening, vertical gardening, low maintenance. So I only have to maintain it every other day, even on the hottest days. And during the winter, if we ever got a little rain, I wouldn't even have to water it at all if it got wet. But he's put in the totes because of all the, well, tree roots. I'm losing my train of thought because these dragonflies are coming up to me and like, oh, let's check her out. So let's kind of walk through. So he's got all his ponds that he put here, and every pond, look at this. Every pond has got fish in it. So he's got his fish that eat the mosquitoes. And then, of course, the dragonflies come in here and they lay their eggs. And this is why he's got so many dragonflies, because of his ponds. And though the fish will eat some of the dragonflies, when the dragonflies are big enough, guess what? They eat the fish. So it's a dog-eat-dog world, I guess you could say. Look at this. And then he's got sweet potato and everything. They are literally following me around the yard. Just gorgeous. So he's got a real food forest. He's got tons of stuff, as you can see, in the ground. I have some stuff. He's got tons of stuff. And now what he's done is he's spotting in his garden totes. So, I mean, it is a real food forest. Sometimes he doesn't come down here for days and days and days. Look at this. But there is so much nature in here. He's got lizards. He's got, out of those 50 plus birds, he's got them down here. They're nesting everywhere. Now this year he says he hasn't had orioles, and I've seen them come in, because I feed them, and go across the hill. So they may have found someplace else to nest. But, let me say something else. There was one time, I think it was last year, that he told me they were not nesting in his yard, and I came here and I found them. They were nesting in an odd place, not the regular place. So they could have nested here, and we may not have seen them. They might have tucked their nest somewhere else. But that's basically it. I just wanted to do a nature walk, and you know what we're doing. He doesn't tool too much, but he's starting to tool a little bit more. And then he's got his sweet potatoes. He's got nasturtiums that were growing. Oh, they're still growing. And that brings in a lot of bees, and you know, hummingbirds will go to the ground and feed on that too. See, he's got buckets going in here. He's got his bananas going. So speaking of, you know, the way that we have everything set up, we do build our gardens for nature as well. He has really no reason to tool things, because if they eat some, they eat some. It doesn't matter. I don't know if you could see this. He's coming up to me. He just came in my face like, aren't you watching me? I'm trying to get your attention. That's the dragonfly. This is the funniest thing. So he wants my attention. He's got more food than he needs. What he's got here is he's got nature, pure nature. Whatever we don't get out of here goes back to the earth and becomes soil for the plants. I mean, think about it. If we weren't picking the fruit off the plants, then the fruit would be falling to the ground. Bam! Rotting on the ground. Critters would be coming and munching on it. It's not going to go too far, especially if the fruit was big. But you know what? In wildlife, a lot of them are lazy. They're not going to move it unless they're squirrels hiding it for the winter. They're going to eat it right there, and then what happens? The leaves fall, and the leaves fall on top of it, and then it turns into natural compost. This is what he's done in here. This is exactly what you want. He buys no soil at all to plant in here. He doesn't have any reason to. If he needs to plant something and he does want some soil, he just goes under these plants and he just takes what he wants. It's all here. This is absolutely 100% nature. This is the way nature does it. Gardening should not be hard. Now, of course, if you have a small garden, then you will have to protect your garden. But don't cover every single thing. Leave a little sacrificial plant out there for them. Just a little something so they'll come and nibble on this, but leave that alone. If you do it that way, you will have much better. This is a female. Look at that. See the color difference? This one's brown. The females are not as red. The males are just all over the place, and they're also fighting with each other. So, see, there's a male. That's the difference. The male is red. You've seen them all over, I'm sure, already on this footage that I'm doing. This is nature at work. This is a true self-contained food forest. Yes, he's adding in some containers now, but that's okay. It's still self-contained. When the onions died back, the leaves got dispersed all over. And all this collard and lemon verbena and purple tree collard and just so much stuff. His artichokes are all on the ground. And they're all feeding themselves. You think about plant food. So that's basically it. He is having a squirrel issue as well, but he's got so much that if the squirrels came in and ate everything, we'd have a really big problem. That would be thousands of squirrels. He doesn't have that many, but he has a lot of babies. And now with the hawks flying around, and I've seen red tails show up here in different hawks, the babies are now hunting. Oh, look, a bumblebee. The babies are hunting for food. So a lot of those squirrels are going to probably disappear. So I think I've talked enough about nature. Wanted to say happy 4th of July. Thought we would just show what's going on here. And I'll have to do a full garden tour with Gary so he can explain what he's doing. I know he's busy working. I see how he's moving all this stuff and setting up his totes. He did tell me that a lot of this stuff is, boy, he's really going to town when he makes compost tea. This is like the best stuff. Look at this. And I do love my compost tea. And you can't buy anything better than that. And I'll do a whole thing just on compost tea. So that's it. As far as rabbits, he has pretty much kept his rabbits out. If a rabbit finds its way in, it might squeeze through the corner. Then he'll set a trap, and then he lets it out. And then you see the poor rabbit standing out there like, please let me back in. So funny. Look at that. There's this Ubae's taking off now. Again, they need a lot of water. We have had no rain, and I don't know how often he waters down here. Once or twice a week he comes down. So that's been really, really difficult. I've heard the stories on how Lake Mead is drier than ever before. That's out in Nevada, and it's really tough. Like I said, it's scary it's so dry, but I have to continue to grow, and I will have to think about maybe catching some rainwater. And the main thing is, I can never catch enough of everything, not for us, but make sure we plant in a fashion that doesn't need a lot of water. If I put all the holes on the bottom of my containers, then it's just going to drain all out and I have to water constantly. If I put the holes up, then it will maintain. And I want to maintain as much of the garden as I can and make sure it keeps going, because this is also the wildlife that's come in here now. Like I said, we had almost no goldfinches and now we're loaded with them. And as far as dragonflies, we have more dragonflies here than probably the whole area has, because this is their place and they've made it their home. You know what dragonflies eat? Mosquitoes, small bugs, tiny, tiny flying insects. So anyways, with that, I'm sidetracked because this dragonfly is flying around my head, and you can't see that because I'm holding the camera in front, and he's flying around my head going, hey, look at me. Oh, look, there's a flower from a sweet potato. See the pink flower there? Can you see that? So all this brings in the hummingbirds and the dragonflies and the butterflies and the moths and just everything. The frogs now we've got, he's so excited, and lizards, and like I said, over 50 species of birds. So invite the birds in if you want them. The birds have been our natural pest control. They eat the insects, they keep everything under control for me, and it has worked beautifully. Okay, I've got to get off. This is ridiculous. I'm being surrounded by, seems like 50 dragonflies. So with that, have a wonderful, wonderful day. Invite nature in if you can. If you've got a small place, absolutely cover what you have to. And don't feel bad about it. Don't feel bad about anything you need to do to grow food for yourselves. I always tell people that. Let me end that with this. I will never put anybody down if you have to go buy something, even if you had to buy some sort of, hopefully an organic type spray, because you need to feed your family. You've got to do what will work for you. But it's good if you can try other methods first, and then if that doesn't work, you need to do what will work for you. We have enough, as you can see, to share plenty with nature and the wildlife, and to compost it back so we can feed our plants in the fashion in which they were meant to be fed. Now I think I've said enough. So with that, have a wonderful, wonderful day. And don't forget to eat what you grow. Bye-bye, everybody. You want to say goodbye?